And then I would like to just introduce everyone on the team that helped put the workshop together. So I am Jeff. I work at the Center for Brain Health at UBC, where I'm responsible for our microscopy core facility. Amy, could you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Amy, and I'm the co-op student working with the Dynamic Brain Circuits cluster, and Jeff is my supervisor.
And Hannah?
Hi, my name's Hannah. I'm joining from the Christie Lab at University of Victoria. I'm a PhD candidate who works on the rat hippocampus and prenatal cannabis exposure.
And Miki, please.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Miki Fujita. I'm a research manager in the UBC Bioimaging Facility. And you?
Hi, my name is Kyung Mi. I'm a research staff working with all optical microscope at Biomedical Facility UBC.
Great. Thank you, everyone. I also wanted to just call on Guang, who's on the call. He's the manager of the core facility for imaging in the Life Science Institute at UBC. So another resource person to help us during the workshop today.
Oh, thank you, Jeffrey.
Okay, thanks for coming. Okay, just admitting a couple more people from the waiting room. Okay, so we're going to start the workshop off with a few pointers on research data management. Research data management was the topic that brought Hannah, Amy, and I together to work on projects. And we thought this was a good opportunity to share some of what we learned with all of you. So just let me get those slides up on the screen. Okay, so everyone should be able to see the slides now. Please let us know if you can't. So these are some research data management pointers just to think about before we dive into working with some data in ImageJ. So personally, I see research data management practices as really important because it underpins our ability to participate in open science. So open science is really a philosophy about research in which we prioritize sharing and sharing promptly our data and other resources that accompany our publications. And we've seen in recent years that this has become a priority at most scales of human organization. So I'm thinking of the UNESCO recommendations on open science, Canada's national roadmap for open science. We've seen in 2021 research data management policy from the tri-agencies, which fund much of Canadian science. And this is to work in conjunction with their older open access policy. We've seen in particular some neuroscience institutes come forward as open science institutes. I'm thinking of the Neuro in Montreal, the Douglas Research Hospital also in Montreal, and the Hotchkiss Brain Institute in Calgary. And of course, open science practices have become important to particular labs and individuals who believe in this idea of sharing research as widely and as quickly as possible. So RDM stands for Research Data Management, and having good research data management practices are a major advantage for participating in open science. The more organized and well-documented your data sets are, the easier it is for others to make use of them, and the easier it is for you to share them. So we wanted to give a few pointers on specific practices that you could consider adopting in your projects to make it easier to share your data and code with others. And others includes other scientists.
Thanks a lot for the presentation, Betty.
Okay. Could everyone please mute? Thanks. So sharing with others means other scientists, of course, that may want to use their data as part of their studies. It means the reviewers of your publications. It means other lab members, or just yourself in the future who may have forgotten exactly what you were doing 6 months ago, for example. So the points that I'm going to touch on are these 6. I'll just quickly go over some file naming conventions that could help. This 3-2-1 backup rule, some data storage options that are available through our universities and national platforms, touch on metadata and README files, and licenses, as well as data and code repositories. I want to point out at the beginning that most of this advice comes through us indirectly from UBC Research Data Management librarian Eugene Barsky, who is an extremely valuable resource for this topic. So in terms of file naming conventions, there's 3 things to keep in mind. You want your files to be easy for computer systems to read, and this means limiting your use of special characters. If you need to separate text in your file names, try to use dashes or underscores as opposed to spaces. It will just save you trouble if you're moving your data between different computer systems. You also want to make it easy for humans to read. So this means that maybe 3 to 5 pieces of important information should make up your file name, because this is really the size of a human's working memory. And another thing to keep in mind is it's common to include dates in your file names, but you can do it in a way that plays nicely with your file manager's default ordering. So for example, by putting the years, the month, day ordering of your date, you'll get things showing up in your lists in your file manager in a chronological fashion. Whereas if you do month, day, year, things will be a bit of a jumble. So these are just some small steps you can take to make things easier as you're working on your projects. And if you want more information, we've included a link to a guide that Eugene made talking about file naming. 3-2-1 backup rule. So here the 3 refers to having 3 copies of your data. You want a here copy, which is the one you're actively working on. You want a near copy, which is perhaps on an external hard drive that's associated with your laptop or the computer in the lab that you use. And you want a far copy, something that is not in the same physical site. You want to make sure that your backups are on 2 different pieces of media. So the example that I mentioned with the backup disk associated with your laptop would be satisfying this criteria. What you want to avoid is simply making copies of your folders that are on the same disk of a computer and would fail along with the primary if that device were to die on you. And then you want one backup that is offsite. So if something happens to the physical space of the lab, for example, then you still have a copy of your data that you could rely on. And Eugene recommended this software called Free File Sync. It's a free tool. Amy and I have explored it a little bit. I think it's worth a look if you want to have some software to help you in making backups. Data storage options. So these depend on what you need, and they also depend on your location. So at UBC, there's several options available: EdgeCloud, TeamShare, OneDrive, Home Drive, SharePoint. You've probably made use of some of these. Eugene made a comparison chart, which we provided the link to if you're interested in the details and what these offerings entail. There's also a storage system available through UBC Arc called Chinook that requires an application. We added a link here for some systems at UVic if you're interested in checking that out, and another link for those options that are available through the Digital Research Alliance of Canada. This is our national computing platform. They also require an application, but there's a lot of resources there if you need more than what's available through the universities. In terms of metadata and README files, this is really your opportunity to provide content and context for your data, both describing the data set as a whole and potentially each data file. Some examples there of things that you might include in this README file. So the README file is just a plain text file that accompanies your data set. And it's a really good way to provide additional information about your data, particularly if you're thinking about sharing it or depositing it along with a publication. So one thing to note is that you should write this kind of documentation as if it's going to be used by someone who's outside your discipline and potentially doesn't know the jargon and doesn't know the abbreviations, just to try to make it more clear. Specifically relevant to Fiji and ImageJ, I would suggest using bioformats importer whenever possible to work with data. This tool allows you to read directly the files that are saved from the vendors that produce our microscopes, and it helps prevent losing important metadata when you export images. So here I'm thinking about things like the physical scale of your images and the details of potentially what fluorophores you were using, things that may help others reproduce your work. And a link here to another guide about best practices for making README files. Licenses. So this is something that comes up often closer to publication or at a point where you want to do a data deposit. You'll be asked to pick a license that sets the ground rules for the reuse of your data. There are a couple that are commonly used. This is the CC0 and the CC BY. These are Creative Commons licenses. And the difference here is the CC0 allows people to reuse your data set for any purpose quite freely, while the CC BY license requires attribution to you. There are a lot of other licenses, so if you're curious about this or you want to make sure you pick the best one for your particular situation, I would recommend consulting with the librarians. They really have a good sense of what the best license could be for your particular situation. I wanted to touch on a few data and code repositories. So there is a system that has evolved out of Dataverse that was set up by various university libraries across the country. It's called Borealis now, and it's available to essentially any Canadian researcher to do data deposit. Similarly, there's the Federated Research Data Repository. This is a national data platform that's available to Canadian researchers, and Open Science Framework. We used Open Science Framework to host the materials for this workshop, so I think you've all seen it, and it is a free platform. If you're at UBC, you can sign in with your CWL, otherwise you just have to register with an email, and then you can use it to host and share data. For code, we tend to use GitHub. Put the link here for the UBC Brain Circuits Group's GitHub organization. You can see the repositories there. It's quite handy for this to exist at the scale of a group of researchers or a lab, so that all the code ends up in one place. So new people, when they come in, can find it easily and start to work with it right away. So that is all I wanted to say about research data management. I'm going to stop my share. And we did provide some information on the do's and don'ts of editing images as pre-reading for the workshop. So at this point, we thought we would take questions on both topics. So if you have things that you'd like to ask about for research data management or what's appropriate to do in terms of editing images, please raise your hand or use the chat or go ahead. Please, Eli, go ahead.
Hey, regarding the 3-2-1 rule, doesn't the use of cloud data kind of make it somewhat irrelevant? Like if you have your data on the cloud, obviously it's still stored somewhere physical, so it can be still destroyed. It's not immortal, but if you do have it on the cloud, do you still recommend using the 3-2-1 rule?
So cloud options can be good. I mean, UBC offers OneDrive now, so I do have a lot of my own files on there, but the capacity for us is a bit limited. So for UBC folks, it's 1 terabyte of space. So you could imagine data sets that come from something like a light sheet microscope that are just so large, you will chew up all your available space there pretty quickly. So I think cloud can be very useful, and it's definitely a remote copy that will not go down if something bad happens to the physical space where your computer is sitting, but it might not be able to handle all cases. Thanks for the question.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other thoughts on research data management or image editing practices?
There's a question in the chat.
Oh,
About the digital image misconduct. Yeah, so in the pre-reading materials, we talked about things that you can do, you cannot do. And for the, when you do put pseudo color to fluorescence images, traditionally people use green and red combinations, but it's not good for color blindness people, and we recommend to use cyan magenta combination or green magenta, but not red green color combinations.
okay. Hope that helped, Ronwin. We've got a couple more minutes for questions. If anyone has thoughts on research data management or the image editing pre-reading. Okay. Well, if a question comes to mind while we're continuing with the, oh, I think there is one. What does journal request when we submit a paper when it comes to images? Yeah, so this, I think this varies a lot by journal, what the specific requests are. So I have been involved in projects where we have been requested to make available every single data point from all of the figures, and other projects where there's just no requirement to share the data. And I think this is going to gradually change and is going to be linked to that tri-agency research data management policy, where they are planning to phase in a data deposit requirement. So in that case, it won't be driven by the journal. It will be driven by whether or not your research is funded by the tri-agencies. And if that's the case, the expectation is that all of the data that you are referencing to make your conclusions in your publication be shared. Okay, I think, Mickey, we've got some questions about image editing. Do you want to take a look at the chat?
Okay, so question about linear and non-linear adjustments and yeah, Gaussian filter. Yeah, so the linear adjustment we're gonna go through in a morning session. non-linear adjustment is, yeah, like Gaussian filter, or it's like a, there's another adjustment for brightness and contrast, and you may want to document when you do the those adjustment. Linear adjustment, usually we don't document it, but yeah, we will go through in the morning session.
Okay. Well, thanks for all those questions, everyone. I'll keep watching the chat, but at this point, I'm going to invite Nikki and Yoon to share their screen and take us through part 1 of the ImageJ workshop.
All right, so I'm gonna share the screen. So in the morning session, we will do the hands-on, like step-by-step demo, that like starting with how to open image, how to do the linear brightness and contrast adjustment, and so on. So I want to make sure that everybody, if you want to do the hands-on step-by-step demo together, please open the Fiji ImageJ software on your workstation, and also make those BIF-3 sample images available on your computer. So we have like about 1.5 hours, like till 12 p.m. to talk about the basics, about introduction to Fiji ImageJ. And myself, I'm Miki Fujita, I'm research manager at UBC Bioimaging Facility, and Yoon, our optical microscopy staff, will be providing this morning session. So learning objectives of this workshop, there are 3 objectives. First one is to identify what image data manipulations are considered acceptable, which you did pre-reading materials. And second one is to understand what is a digital image. And third one is to edit images using basic tools available in Fiji ImageJ. This is learning objectives for the workshop. So just for recap, what is a digital image? Digital images are composed of pixels, and each pixel is assigned a numerical value, which we call pixel intensity. So if we zoom in the part of the digital image, then you can see the pixel, and each pixel has this numerical value. And let's look at top right corner, black pixel. The pixel intensity numerical value is 0. And if we look at white pixel, it has the pixel intensity value 255. And this image is 8-bit grayscale, which has the variations of 256 pixel intensities, 0 to 255. So when we look at the digital image, we always look at how many pixels are used to create one image. And this is depending on the pixel number on the chip in a CCD camera or CMOS camera attached to the microscopy system. And if you have a lot of pixels, more pixel means you have more pixel resolutions. And second one is the color depth or bit depth. This is the number of colors measured in bits. And if you have monochrome or grayscale image, it will be the shades. So for example, if you have 8-bit grayscale image, then you have 256 variations in a color depth, bit depth. If you have 16-bit grayscale image, then there are this 65,536 variations. And if your camera is color camera, then you're gonna get maybe 8-bit RGB color image, which RGB stands for red, green, blue channel. And 8-bit is 256 intensities. So 8-bit RGB image is the combination of 256 intensities for each red, green, blue. So you have a lot of color variations in an 8-bit RGB, 16 million, more than 16 million colors. So this is a recap, and I'm going to move on to the Fiji ImageJ pros and cons. Fiji ImageJ software is free software, and you can download. It's available from ImageJ Fiji website, and good for image processing. So if you want to crop, you want to do brightness contrast adjustment, or if you want to, if you have multiple color images, you can merge images, or you can assign different colors to each image slice. Or if you have Z-stack or time-lapse images, you can manipulate those images. And it's good for image processing. And if you want to do image analysis, we can, the basic module of the software version, it comes with basic analytical tools like measure length, area, angle, pixel intensities. And you can also make movies and 3D rendering, time series, colocalization analysis, and making montages, etc. And there are a lot of plugins modules, that's additional features you can download from the ImageJ Fiji website, and you can have many analytical tools in ImageJ Fiji software. The cons of Fiji ImageJ is this software is not suitable for drawing or combining several images. So for example, for publications, you wanna put like 3-4 images together to make image tile, then you cannot use ImageJ. You just do all the image processing using ImageJ software. Then you're gonna use Photoshop to open those images and put all images together in one page. And in pre-reading materials, I put, I think it was close to the last of the slides, I put, when you do the Photoshop, usually each journal has the minimum requirement for the pixel resolutions. And for example, image file, you have to have at least 300 dpi. Then you have to rescale your images, but you cannot reduce the pixel resolutions. Then how to do this in Photoshop, I put 1 slide or 2 slides for that. So please look at those pre-reading materials. So outline of image processing tools we covered during this morning session. We're going to cover how to set correct scale of the image, how to rotate and crop the image, how to do brightness and contrast adjustment, how to insert a scale bar, and how to edit 2 color images, add pseudo colors, and merge them to one image, and how to process Z-stack images. We call it Z projections. And lastly, we're going to cover how to use ROI, means region of interest, ROI manager for fluorescence intensity measurement. So the first part of this morning session, we're going to have SEM image. This is a raw image. And we're going to do scale correction, rotate and crop, brightness and contrast adjustment. And we're going to insert a scale bar, and we're going to have final image. So I'm going to stop sharing. And this time, I will screen share. The ImageJ. The screen share desktop. So I want you to open the Fiji ImageJ software. Am I sharing desktop?
Yes, I can
Okay,
see
thank
Fiji
you.
loading.
Okay, yeah, Fiji loading. Okay, and for the BIF3 sample images, please select this BIF SEM. Yeah, we're gonna open this BIF SEM image one TIFF. My Fiji is doing something else. Oh. I'm just gonna stop share for now. My office computer is slow today. Okay. So I'm gonna share the screen, desktop. All right. So I opened the Fiji ImageJ on this software has very simple interface, and I'm using a Mac, but also for the Windows, you can see the similar toolbox. So here, and you have this toolbox. There's a like selection tools, and there are other functions. And then on the top, you can see File, Tab, Edit, Image, Process, Analyze, Plugins, and Window Help. I mentioned about Fiji plugins. So basic module comes with all the analytical work, the modules, but if you can add those plugins for your specific analytical tools. And to open the image, you go to File. Oh, another thing I can mention. Oh yeah. So here also on the toolbar on the bottom right side, there's a finder option. Like if I want to search where is the ROI manager, for example, then I can find it and then open the ROI manager. So that's the search tool here. So, okay, so I'm gonna start with BIF3 sample images, sample image one, SEM image one. To open the image, you can go to File and Open and select the file, or you can drag the image file to toolbar and drop it to the toolbar, then you can open it, the image. So when you open the image, this SEM image is saved as TIFF, and you can see at the top, it says the title of the image and TIFF file. And on the top left corner, it says 5 times 3.75 inches. This is the scale of this image. And this scale information is often incorrect. It follows kind of default setting of the ImageJ software, and we have to change it. And the bracket is showing how many pixels making this one image. And then here is the bit information. So this image is 8-bit. It has 256 variations. And lastly, this is the size of this image file. So first of all, we have to make corrections for this image scale. We have here, it says on the right bottom side of the image, there's a scale bar. this is the 1 millimeter equals to this length. So we're gonna take this scale to correct the scale of this image. To do this, you go to Fiji Analyze, top bar Analyze, and Tools, and go to scale. Oh, sorry, set scale. Oh, where is set scale? Oh, sorry, Analyze and set scale. Here. When you click set scale, new window shows up. Here it says distance in pixels. We're gonna put everything 111, and unit of length will be pixel. And okay. What we're gonna do is to use the line tool to measure how many pixels equal to 1 millimeter. So to do this, we want to reset scale just 1 pixel equal to 1 pixel. And we're gonna do conversion later. So once you set scale 111 pixel, then go to toolbar and select this line tool. Straight line. Then put your mouse on top of the scale information, right bottom side. I think somewhere there. Okay. So that's yellow line selected. And then we gonna go to analyze and measure. Once you hit analyze and measure, then this table will come out. So it says length 600, means 600 pixels equal to 1 millimeter in this image. Then we want to tell the software that, oh, this image scale information is 600 pixels equal to 1 millimeter. To do this, you go to analyze and set scale again. Then here, distance in pixels, yeah, it was 600 pixels. And known distance would be 1 unit millimeter. So that's the correct scale for this image. So 600 pixels equal to 1 millimeter. Then I put OK. Then you will see top left corner, it has the correct scale information about this image. This image is 4.27 millimeter times 3.2 millimeter. Okay, so that's the first step, and we just gonna
Mickey?
Yep.
There's a question in the chat. Can you just quickly show people how you got the 600 pixels again?
Okay. So let's go back. Go to analyze and set scale. And we put everything 111 pixel. Then we use line tool. So select line tool. And then drag the width of 1 millimeter. Somewhere there. When you do this, you may want to zoom into this bottom right corner, but I'm just doing by looking at image. Yeah. So once you selected the length of the scale bar, then go to Analyze, again set scale, and then you change it to, oh, this time I got, oh, sorry, I skipped one step. Go to Analyze and Measure, because what is the line measurement is giving you, oh, this time I got 602 pixels equal to 1 millimeter. Then we go to set scale. Okay, 602 pixels equal to 1 millimeter. I'm doing this quickly, so every measurement I'm getting just 1 to 2 or 1 to 5 pixels difference. When you want to do this, you may want to take time. So that's the correct info.
So, Mickey,
Yeah.
there are some questions in the chat about that variability in measuring the 600 pixels.
Yep.
So maybe you could comment on how
All
people
right.
might do it super carefully.
Yeah, super carefully. I think for the if you already you have multiple images, you can do measurement, or even you have one image, you can do multiple image measurements, like let's say 10 times, and take average number. Or sometimes there is this scale information available in a facility that, oh, when you are in this magnification, we know that 1 micron is equal to how many pixels, or 1 pixel equal to something nanometer or micrometer. So you can ask facility staff as well. And if you are using the fluorescence microscopy, then the software gives you raw file with metadata, and metadata usually contains those scale information. And so you don't have to do this scale correction. Sometimes when you open up those raw file, you can see all the scale information already, right information. And additional information is available in a PowerPoint file, slides you can download from the OSF storage server. Okay, so I'm gonna move on to rotate and crop function. Because for the final, like for the publication image, I don't need those information at the bottom of the image. This image was taken with SEM, and then there's a, it was taken in 2016, and we want to crop it. And also before cropping it, I want to rotate this image. When you rotate image, you can go to image and transform or rotate. Then this screen comes up, rotate, and you can please click fill with background color and enlarge. Oh no, well, you can click all of them. I usually click enlarge image and preview, so that I can see the preview image as I rotate. When you rotate the image, I'm using this sliding bar at the angle. And I want to do like this way. Okay, let's say I'm interested in a head part of this insect. Then I'm okay with this rotating angle. Then I press OK. So I got a rotated image. To crop this image, please select this rectangle shape at the left. corner, and then you can select region of interest and go to image and crop. So this is a cropped image. Then you can find, the image scales, they change it, and then also pixel number changed, and also file size is smaller. Every time you do something to the image, I recommend to save as TIFF, and let's see, I will name it cropped. So next step is I want to show you how we do brightness and contrast adjustment. Let's check the pixel intensity distribution of this image. Can you go to analyze? Is it analyze? Oh yeah, analyze and histogram. If you go to analyze and histogram, and this graph is showing the distribution of pixel intensity in this cropped image. And here, what we are looking at is the minimum pixel intensity and maximum pixel intensity in this image. So there's no black pixel intensities, like black means pixel intensity 0, and there's a nice pixel intensity distribution from 61 to 254. Okay, so let's do linear adjustment of contrast and brightness. So go to image and adjust and brightness and contrast. When you click this brightness and contrast, it gives you this same graph, distribution of pixel intensities histogram, and you can see x-axis is 0 to 255, and there's a minimum, maximum bar, and brightness contrast bars. We don't use auto function. For example, I can show you what will happen if I press auto. Auto did something. It's a linear adjustment, and it's kind of cutting out some of the pixel below 66. So if you check the histogram of this image, the pixels are range starting from 61 to 254. But if we use auto, then we are removing the pixels that are pixel intensity 61 to 65, which is not acceptable when you do the brightness and contrast adjustment. So I never use auto. I cannot go back to, okay. I cannot go back to, so never use auto. I just wanted to show you auto button does something that we don't have any controls sometimes. So when you do brightness and contrast adjustment, let's go to again, image and adjust brightness contrast. We move this minimum and maximum bar to stretch the histogram. And this image, because maximum pixel intensity is 254, so I'm not gonna move this maximum. I'm losing histogram in this. My Fiji is not. Okay. So you can, in this image, for this image, you can move this minimum bar slowly from 0 up to 61. This is acceptable. So just by moving this minimum bar and looking at image, how the image looks, is it improving, or you wanna get a good range of brightness contrast? That's up to you. As long as the minimum bar is below 61, that's acceptable to do this. And this is called linear adjustment. You can see this linear line. It's very simple adjustment. Okay, so let's say I stop at 39. I'm satisfied with this image. Then once you're okay with this brightness and contrast adjustment, you hit apply. Once you hit apply, you cannot go back. So always good to save the image after you do something to the image. So I still have cropped this image saved. And after I hit apply, I'm gonna save this in save image. Okay, it says pixel value will change if you click OK. Okay, I'm gonna save this image with this different name. So as you can see, the histogram changed. So histogram change means not change the pattern of pixel intensity distribution, but histogram stretched out. And now we still have kind of nice 0 to 255 histogram. Okay, so I'm gonna save this image. Save as.
Hi, Mickey. While you're saving, there's several questions in the chat about adjusting the brightness and contrast. So maybe you can take a look.
Show chat. Oh, there are a lot of chat.
For the adjustment, you can also use maximum. You can make a brighter your image as well. So not only for minimum, but do not run away from the histogram, not to lose the pixel. So Natalie's question was, would you ever adjust the maximum?
Yeah, that's right. General rule is just to stay within the histogram ranges. Yes. If your histogram says minimum 0, max 254, yeah, you cannot do anything. Oh, yeah. All right. For minimum max adjustment. Yeah, linear adjustment, brightness, contrast adjustment. Yeah, in a publication, I don't see people mentioning it. But yeah, you can mention on your lab notebook. Yeah, you should record it. What kind of adjustment you did. That's right. Yeah. As long as you stayed in a range of histogram and then do the minimum maximum adjustment, yeah, that's acceptable. Okay. So this is the brightness and contrast adjustment, and I saved this image. Then the last step is to insert the scale bar. Because we cropped the image, we don't have that scale bar at the bottom, right? But this image already has correct scale information, so it's easy to put the scale bar. So to do this, go to Analyze and go to Tools and select scale bar. Once you select scale bar, then this screen shows up. I just gonna, yeah. Here width in millimeter means, let's say, can you see the image on the bottom right? Right now we have 1 millimeter scale bar. We can change it to 0.5 millimeter, for example. Height in millimeter, I just put 0. Thickness in pixel is thickness of the scale bar itself. Now it's 4 pixels, but let's say put 20. Then it has a good, nice, thick scale bar. Font size is the font size for this 0.5 millimeter. So we can put 20 or we can do 25. Oh, 25. Yeah. And color white, if you have whitish image, you can put in black, for example. You can change the color of the scale bar. If you don't want text in an image, you can click hide text. So just scale bar shows up in the image. Location of the scale bar, sometimes your lower right is not kind of showing the region of interest. Then you can change it to, sometimes I see upper left people put it. Or you can change the location, anywhere. Or add selection too. I never use this, but usually I put scale bar lower right. And then there are those boxes, selection boxes. Here, it was already default setting for the ImageJ Fiji. Horizontal, usually we want a horizontal scale bar. Bold text, we can deselect, select. I just leave this serif font deselected. Or if we want to do vertical, we can do vertical. And hide text or show text. And lastly, overlay. This one is if you want to embed scale bar in the image, please deselect overlay. Then OK. Then let's save this image. So in the ImageJ software, this file is showing this scale bar. And often for the journal publication submission, we submit TIFF file and then reviewers don't use ImageJ software sometimes. And they use just, let's say, preview or different software. Then let's see, we open this scale bar image. Then, just make sure that scale bar is embedded. Because if you are not, it's gonna do the scale bar again. Analyze tools, scale bar. And if you don't select, deselect overlay, let's say, usually the default is the overlay is selected. And if you, left this overlay selected and OK, and save as. And save. And where is the best one? If you open this image, then scale bar is not embedded. So make sure that overlay is deselected when you insert the scale bar. Okay, so the first part is done. Should I check questions? Are there any questions about this first part of the image processing? Yeah, okay. All right. All the questions are answered. Okay, so then let's move on to second image, which is BIF2 channel image.gbi. This image was taken with DICE microscope software. So it has this GBI file format. The BIF2 channel image. Because it's not a simple TIFF file, this bioformats import options screen appears. And here is stack viewing, view stack with hyperstack. So this image has the two channel, two image slice, it's stacked. So it's called stack view stack with hyperstack. And yeah, I usually keep it hyperstack. And if you put the cursor on top of this hyperstack or view stack with, then you can see this information here to what the hyperstack means or view stack with. Yeah, so you can check what hyperstack means. And also there are other options that you just need metadata only. Metadata means the file comes with image that shows all the information like parameter setting for fluorescence image, what kind of excitation emission filters are used, and what kind of objective lens are used, and magnification, also pixel information about this image. So I just leave it as a hyperstack. And then if you have all the multi-color time-lapse Z, then there's, yeah, you can select stack order. I'm gonna skip this one for now. Dataset organizations, I usually leave it empty. Color options, we can do default or colorized. Just gonna do default. Metadata viewing, I usually keep metadata open. So select display metadata. And select use virtual stack memory
Nikki?
management. Yes?
Sorry to interrupt, but there's a few questions in the chat about how you got the bioformats importer to open up. So maybe you could show this.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, let's do that. You can go to open. And open BIF2 channel image.gbi. This file format requires this bioformat import options. That's why it shows up. If you're opening TIFF, you're not gonna get this screen. Okay, and then the lastly, this GBI file has two channels, I said, and it's asking, do you want to split channels? Or if you have Z, then you can also select split focal planes or split time-lapse image. You can do split time points. For now, because I have two channel image, I'm gonna select split channels. And once I hit OK, then it's gonna open up image and metadata. So this is a metadata. As I said, it has the information, how many pixels are in this image, and also what kind of camera was used. And actually this metadata is partially collapsed. I don't have the pixel information, but usually it has the 1 pixel equal to how many nanometers, and then this metadata you can find. So you can change the scale information. For this demo, I just gonna keep this image as 111 pixel. So I'm gonna put metadata aside. Okay, so there are two images because I split two channels and both channels shows black. So let's see, here the file C equals 0, it says C means channel and 1/2. So this is the one slice out of two images. And there's a image file name. And it says 1024 microns, and then bracket 1024 pixels. So I just gonna change, I want to change it to one pixels. And this image is 16-bit. And I forgot to tell you in the beginning of this session, if you go to image and type, yeah, you can see.
Hi, Mickey. There are some issue to open the image.
Okay. What kind of issue?
They cannot open they can get it, open the bioimporter. So yeah, several people has a trouble.
Oh. Yeah, you can try plug-in bioformats importer if it doesn't open.
But usually Fiji has already included the bioimporter, so you can easily drag and then bioimporter is automatically on.
Right. Yeah, I can show you plugins, also bioformats importer. You can select the GBI file. Okay, so I'm gonna move on to okay, so first of all, I just want to change the scale, 1 pixel equal to 1 pixel. If you have multiple images, you want to use the same scale, you can click global, and every image you open is gonna have 111 pixel. Or if you have the multiple images and you taken with the same camera, same objective lens, you want to keep that set scale information, you can also click global. So next time you open the image, the scale information is already there. Okay, so yeah, the image looks really completely dark, and my Fiji has some defects. And if this is happening to your on your computer, please go to image and adjust brightness contrast. And I can show you what's happening here. So you can see if you have this screen PNC, and if you click reset, and then you will see this image. Just the previous setting was, yeah, the brightness contrast was 0, slide bar 0. So if I do reset, this it should be showing this image on your computer. So it has 1024 pixels, and this is 16-bit image. And if you go to image and type, yeah, 16-bit is selected. And if you want to do image analysis, usually most of the plugins don't work with the 16-bit images. And in that case, it's okay to convert it to 8-bit. You're gonna lose the color variations from 65,000 to 256 color variations, but sometimes for analysis, yeah, it's okay to do that. So for now, I'm gonna change it to 8-bit. Then you can see here is 8-bit, and this one also I'm gonna move, change it to 8-bit. What is the reset button going back to? Oh yeah, just my Fiji was weird that when I open the image, the brightness contrast bar is somehow it's default as 0, but it shouldn't be like that. So I just put it back to original condition. Usually you don't do this step. Okay, so we have the 2 images of 8-bit images. And first of all, yeah, so this is the cross section of Arabidopsis stem. The C equals 0 image is the bright field image. And then C equal 1 image is the fluorescence image. It's capturing lignin autofluorescence from the secondary cell wall. And default setting is giving me this blue color. And if you want to change the color in a fluorescence image, you can add pseudo color. And to do that, go to toolbar, and there's a icon. It says LUT. This is lookup tables. So if you click lookup table, there's a small arrowhead in the lower right-hand side, and you can see this all kinds of color variations. So for example, if you wanna change it to yellow, you can change it to yellow. Or if you wanna kind of show heat map, then you can go to 16 colors. So based on the pixel intensity, it gives different colors. Another thing, yeah, if you want to use magenta, you can do this magenta. So this LUT icon is very useful when you want to add pseudo color. Okay, so I just gonna give gray for this image. Before merging the channels, I usually do brightness and contrast adjustment. So if you go to image and again adjust brightness contrast, here is showing pixel intensity. Oh, I should check the histogram of this pixel intensity. Go to analyze and histogram. Yeah, here we have, this bright field image has pixel intensity distribution from 0 to 255. So we cannot do any adjustment. Okay, let's check the fluorescence image. So select this fluorescence image, go to analyze and histogram. Then, oh yeah, this one also has 0 to 255. Okay, sometimes if you have very bright image, background is not 0, pixel intensity 0, then you may want to do adjustment to make the background 0. But again, when you do this adjustment, you cannot eliminate any pixels. So the adjustment needs to be done within the range of histogram. Okay, so let's merge this image, those 2 images. Go to image and color and select merge channels. When you select merge channels, this panel shows up. And you can assign each image for different color. Let's say for C4 gray channel, I want to keep the bright field image as gray. So I select C=0 file as gray. And then I want this C=1 channel as cyan color. Then I'm gonna select C=1. Then the bottom part, it has the three choices: create composite, keep source images, ignore source LUTs. I just click both create composite, keep source images, and OK. Then I get this composite. This composite has sliding bar at the bottom. C means channel, and C1 and C2. C1 and C2. C1 is, if you check the top left, it is selecting channel 1. And if I move slide bar to right, it's selecting second channel blue. On a composite, also you can do brightness and contrast adjustment. I'm just gonna show you image adjust and brightness contrast. And here now it's channel 1 is selected, so we can see the histogram of the bright field image. And if I move the slide bar to right, the channel 2 is selected and showing the histogram here. Pixel distribution. So yeah, you can do this brightness contrast adjustment once you make composite, but I usually do it. Yeah, well, also, yeah, because when you make composite, you're looking at already merged two channel image, and sometimes when after you merge two channel image, you may want to do fine adjustment to make the image improved, but you really have to follow this basic rule that you cannot eliminate any pixels. But sometimes you may want to adjust background as dark as possible. So when you do that, this function is useful. And let's say we are okay with this image, then we have to merge to RGB image. To do this, I just gonna save this composite. To merge those two channels as one image, we go to image color and stack to RGB. Then this is the red, green, blue channel RGB color. And you don't see sliding bar at the bottom. Or another way of doing stack to RGB is if you have composite, then you can go to image and type and click RGB color. Yeah, then you get this merged image. Why we have to do this stack to RGB? Because if we keep this composite, let's say we open this composite file using preview software, then see it shows very weird pattern of image and it's not merged. But if we open composite file on a ImageJ Fiji, then yeah, we can see this merged image. But as long as you see those sliding bar at the bottom, then when you open this image file using different software, then you're not gonna have this merged image. So always for the publication purpose or other like for your presentations, please make sure that you do this, stack to RGB to merge 2-channel images or 3-channel, 4-channel images. So that's this is the merging 2-color images or 3-color images. You can have different, don't save. Then third exercise is Z-stack image. So go to File and open BIF-Z-stack image. This is TIFF file, so it's not going to ask you the file format. I'm going to disable global calibration. So this is a Z-stack image of microtubule labeling in a plant cell, root cell. And I use a confocal and I exported images as TIFF, so it's already TIFF files. And at the top left corner, you can see 1/9 means this stack has 9 image slices. And this one has 124 pixels and 8-bit. And at the bottom of the image, you have this sliding bar that you can move to different image slices. Okay, so if you have this stack of images, I want to show you that you can make animations. Go to Stacks, Tools. Oh, it's not here. Oh, animation, sorry, animation. Stacks animation and start animation. You can start animation. And if you want to change the speed of animation, you can go to again, image stacks, animation options. Then you can change the speed, let's say 10 frames per second. Start animation.
Hi, Mickey.
Yeah.
Can you open the stack again? Somebody missing how to open it?
Okay. You can go to open, file open, and please select BIF-Z-stack image.TIFF file. Okay, so I was showing you animation option. You can go to image, stacks, and animation. And you can go to animation option, and you can change the speed. Also, you can select which frame you want to use for animation, and loop back and forth sometimes. And yeah, let's do 10 frames per second. Oh, it's kind of fast. Okay. I just gonna make it slow. Go to image stacks, animation option. How about 5 frames per second? Or maybe 3 frames per second. Okay. Yeah, and to save as movie file, you can go to File, Save, and AVI. GIF is also okay. But when you do that, you may want to insert the scale bar too, and you may want to also, yeah, do other image adjustment. Just I'm showing you this option. Okay, I'm gonna stop the animation. Okay. Another thing you can do is, let's say we want to remove some slices. For example, I'm looking at slice 1 and go to slice 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 is kind of getting out of focus. And I'm looking at those lower middle 2 cells. Those ones are having nice microtubule labeling. But those microtubule labeling is not showing, for example, in the image slice 3, 2, 1. Yeah, 1, 2, 3. Also, 4, it starts to show up. Okay, let's say I want to eliminate slice 1 to 4. I want to keep slice. Animation started. Okay. I want to keep slice 5, 6, 7, 8. And yeah, okay. I want to keep slice 5 to 8. To remove the slices, go to Image and Stacks and Tools. And at the bottom, there's a function slice remover, slice keeper, and stack sorter, stack splitter. We just want, I'm gonna use slice keeper. I want to keep slice 5 to 8. So if you click slice keeper, and then it will ask you which slice you want to keep. So I put 5 and 8, and increment would be 1. Once I hit OK, then here is the image that I only have slice 5, 6, 7, 8. It shows that I have a total of 4 slices, and it starts from slice 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay.
Mickey?
Yep.
There's a couple of questions in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you can take a look.
Okay. Is it, what does increment do in this case? So increment, if we put 2, I think it's going to be every other slices. And I usually keep it 1 because I don't want to skip the slices. How do you get to slice remover in ImageJ? Slice remover, you go to Image, Stacks, Tools, and Slice remover. This one, we can try. If you click slice remover, also you can say, which slice you want to remove. Because in this case, I just wanted to keep 5 to 8 out of 1 to 9. I use slice keeper. But if you want to just remove 1 to 4 out of 1 to 9, then you can use this slice remover. Let's say I want to remove from 1 to 4. Then put increment 1. Okay. So I'm gonna move on to putting those 4 slices together. We call it Z projection. So it means that we're gonna combine all images to one image. We call it Z projection, and to do that, we go to Image and Stacks and Z projection. Okay, so here we can select start slice 1 and stop slice 4. Projection type, there are different kinds. Average intensity means it's gonna sum up all the pixel intensities from all 4 slices and then divide it by 4. This is the average intensity. Max intensity is taking up all the maximum pixel intensities and then adding to them. We usually use average intensity or max intensity or some slices. And you can try different projection type to see how the final image looks like, and you may want to document what kind of projection type you used. So let's try average intensity. And this is the average image, and the file name has the indication that this is the average AVG, average image. Let's try different tools. So stacks Z projection. And let's say, I want max intensity. Yeah. So I'm putting 2 projected Z projection images. The left-hand side is max, and the right-hand side is averaged. Yeah. And it's just depends on you which image you want to show, and you can compare how the microtube will look like. I think I prefer to present this max projection image. So yeah, here, this is the Z projection of the image of this image file. So that's the Z projection. So do you have any questions?
There's a question in the chat about if you're counting cells, is there a guideline for when to use the average projection versus the maximum projection?
So let's say you have confocal image of cells, and those ones are Z stack, and you want to use it for cell count, then you want to check number of cells in a field of view, then I would use maximum intensity, so you don't miss some cells that are a little bit out of focus plane. It depends on the situation. It's hard to tell, but yeah, for cell counting. And you can compare always average and max and how the final image look like. Are you okay with averaged image or max image? And if you want to do cell counting for other image files, you have to be consistent. Always use averaged projection type, for example, if you decided to do so. All right. So I'm gonna move to So I'm gonna go back to this 2-channel image. Channel image. No, it doesn't have to be 2-channel image. I didn't put this sample image because we are talking about cell counting. I thought, maybe I can open. You don't have this image, so you can just watch how I do. Here I have the euglena cells that have the autofluorescence, and let's say I want to do fluorescence intensity measurement, for example. And I pull up this image because I wanted to show you this ROI manager, region of interest ROI manager. And to get to ROI manager, go to image, tags and tools. Oh, it's not here. Where is it? Analyze, tools, and ROI manager. Let's say I want to select those cells. Select a rectangle shape, and then I'm selecting this one. And once I select one cell on the ROI manager panel, I click add. And drag this selection to different cell. If I'm not sure which cell I added, you can select show all, so you can see which cell you selected. And also you can put labels. Let's say I selected 5 cells. Then I want to measure the pixel intensity. To do that, go to plugins and analyze and set measurements. And I usually select area, mean gray value, and mean max gray value, and OK. Then click measure. Then you get mean value of the, mean value of pixel intensities in selected area because there are a lot of black pixels. Mean value is very low, but max intensities, you can see each selected area pixel intensities are, what are the pixel intensities. So that's ROI. And if you have
Hi, Nikki. Can you show again how to open ROI?
Oh, yeah. Go to Analyze, Tools, and ROI Manager. Often I forget where the ROI Manager is. Then you can go to search tool and you type in ROI, and then you can select, here, this one, and run. And another function I wanted to show you quickly is that you can watch, go back to that stack image. If you have that stack or time lapse and you want to measure pixel intensities over time or over every slices, you can still use the ROI Manager. So let's go to Analyze and Tools, ROI Manager. And let's see, this is not a good example, but let's see. I selected multiple points and I want to do measurement with all the image slices, all 9 slices in a selected area. Then you can click more in a ROI Manager panel. Then you can go to multi-measure, select multi-measure. Then it's going to ask you, do you want to measure all 9 slices? 1 row per slice. Yeah, I can just keep it selected. Okay. Then you get all the measurement. Yeah. So the left-hand side is showing the slice 1 to 9 and area 1. And the next column is showing mean value and mean max, pixel intensity, and then area 2. Yeah. So, and you can export those results as a Excel sheet. You can just select it and copy and paste the Excel sheet, or I think you can export it as, I don't remember how to do it. Yeah, well, I'm just gonna show you a copy and paste. Yeah, simple way. If you have another way of pixel intensity, can I delete? Yes. Since I'm opening this microtubule image, let's say I want to measure the pixel intensity across this cell. I use Align tool to select area and then go to Analyze. I think it's Plot Profile. Is it? Yeah. Then I can get x-axis distance pixel. If you that have done the scale correction, it's gonna be micrometer or centimeter or millimeter. And this image, I think it's gonna be microns. Then gray value at the y-axis, you can see the pattern of the pixel intensities across this selected line. And you can pull up as a data or save as data, and you can show it in your presentation or publication. And you can explore different things. How about surface plot? Yeah, there are different functions in ImageJ Fiji, so you can try it out. And if you wanna do analysis, please save each image after you do processing. And
Nikki?
record. Yeah.
They're asking, show it one more time. I think based on the profile.
Oh, okay.
Profile. Yeah.
Yeah. So if, let's say I want to see the pixel intensity profile here in a selected line tool, go to Analyze and Plot Profile. And if you click Plot Profile, you get this graph showing x-axis distance of this selected line, and then gray value of pixels that you selected along this line. So that's it for this morning session. We have about 12 minutes to answer any questions about this morning session. This is, we covered very, well, for beginners and basics, and also ethics of the image processing. And we're gonna be available till 12 p.m. to answer any questions. If you miss some steps, I can go through it again.
Yeah, so thank you, Mickey and Un, for presenting part 1. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to unmic and ask, or unmute and ask, rather. We're going to take a break for lunch next, so we'll be back at 1 p.m. We're going to cover part 2 with Hannah, looking at more of the analysis functions in ImageJ, including maybe something that might help with one of the questions in the chat about how to count things. I think that's part of the particle analysis. And then we'll touch on macros to finish the workshop. The lunch break is also a good opportunity to download files from OSF if you haven't had a chance yet. Maybe, Amy, you can put the OSF link in the chat again.
Hi, could I ask a question about setting the scale?
Sure. Go ahead.
So I understand how to do it when you have a scale bar to measure, but when you don't have that, I think I missed how you know or how it knows.
Yeah. There are 2 options. So first option, if you have the metadata, check the metadata, it will have the information usually that 1 pixel equal to how many nanometers or how many microns. Then you can put that information under the set scale, 1 pixel, or like how many pixel equal to 1 nanometer or 1 microns. And another way to do that, sometimes your camera doesn't have that scale information, then metadata doesn't give you any information, pixel information. In that case, you have to have micrometer slide, which is the slide that has scale. It's usually like 1 millimeter in total, and it has the scale like the bars every 100 microns and 10 microns. So you take image of this micrometer slide in different with a different objective lens, and then use that image to measure scale. And then when you save your image, also you should have objective lens information, which objective lens you used, and then you match to that scale information.
Okay, so when you're getting it from the metadata, because when we were using that image that had the metadata, I was trying to figure out which like piece of information was the scale. What is it called? I don't know why I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah, I think in a slide, I put it example in a Leica, they say pixel scale or something like each vendor use different name.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and usually sometimes it says pixel size, let's say 1024 times 1024. Then scale of the image, something microns times something microns. Then you do conversion. Oh, okay, 1024 equals to this microns. So it depends on the meta. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, thank you for asking that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question.
Okay, there's one question about global scale. Yeah, set scale dialog. Yeah, global means yeah, so once you set the scale, if you select global, then later any images you're gonna open will have that scale information. And it's very useful if you're opening up the images taken with the same setting, and you don't have to do scale correction for every image. So sometimes I use this global function, select global. And every time you open the image, it asks, do you want to use global calibration or you don't want to? So you can just select, deselect. Another question, higher gray value, does it mean pixel with higher values too? And black, more black, like darker image, dark pixels is pixel intensity is close to 0. And we usually say low or gray value.
All right, so welcome back, everyone. We'll continue to admit the people that are joining, but we should get started with part 2. So hopefully after part 1, we have a bit of a feel for what ImageJ can do, how to work with its built-in functions, and Hannah is going to extend this a bit to some of the common analysis functions that we tend to rely on in ImageJ. So I'll invite Hannah to share her screen and take us through the material that she's put together for part 2.
Hey guys, I'm Hannah and I will be doing part 2. So I'd first like to start by making sure everyone has the files downloaded for part 2 because we'll be working through examples together. So yeah, hi, my name is Hannah. I'm going to be doing part 2. And yeah, we will have 2 example pieces I think we need downloaded, and I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. So I'm going to be working through some common analysis functions. It's slated to go for 45 minutes. I'm not sure how much time people will need. I'm aiming for about 35 in the hopes we have time to answer some questions and work through any problems that come up. So the structure of this part is we'll be addressing how to do some thresholding, some particle analysis, and colocalization. First, we're going to work on some microglia images and then build on what we learned in part 1. First, we're going to prep the images and threshold them, and then afterwards, we'll be using this output to analyze particles to learn about the shape of characteristics of our cells. Afterwards, we'll do a different example, looking at colocalization of serotonin transport clusters, which is from a problem that we worked through with someone from the Crucial Lab at UVic through Data Champions, which is a really cool program. So thresholding is the act of looking at all the pixels in an image and seeing their intensity values and going, okay, I want to keep all pixels above this value or all pixels below this value or all pixels between 2 values. And this lets us binarize our image and do further analysis on it. Fiji offers a lot of different ways to threshold. Simple is usually best. If you have a variability of the amount of background in your image, you can ask Fiji to calculate your histogram values, and you actually use these to make a threshold relative to your total background. And on this slide, I have some examples of like in my original grayscale image, this is also some microglia, and then what it looks like if you threshold it different ways. And so there's different ways of thresholding that are valid depending on what it is you're looking at. So if you were interested in counting cell bodies and didn't care about the processes, something closer to the 1% threshold might be appropriate. But if you're hoping to look at cell morphology on a large scale, then maybe something where you can actually see the processes would be good. So, okay. So the way I'm going to work through the slides that have all these instructions on them is I will first take you through them, and then I will stop the PowerPoint and actually run through them on my screen. And then I'll put the PowerPoint back up. I'll put a timer on, and everyone can work through the images themselves. So we're going to start by loading the folder named Merge into Fiji by dragging and dropping it. This will be a bit different if you have Fiji or ImageJ. For the current version of Fiji I have, this is what pops up. You can have bioformats importer pop up sometimes if depending on the size of the images you are working with. But if you have an older version or if you have ImageJ, instead you get a dialog box that will appear that will ask you if you want to convert to RGB or open files in a stack. If you're running this version, you need to make sure that the open files in the stack is checked, or it will open 60 images one by one in your screen, and that won't be fun for you. So we'll take this merge folder and we will drag and drop it into Fiji. And in front of you will be an image of presumed microglia, although technically it could also be macrophages, and cell nuclei. This image is a stack, but for what we are doing, we will want to work with it as a single image. So we did a bit of Z projection in part 1. So we're going to start by doing some Z projection together. So for this one, I want you guys to try both max intensity and standard deviation. I find standard deviation works quite well when you have images that are like very, very bright, and max intensity I find is the most standard one I've seen in publications. So just to reiterate what Z projecting is if you have a stack of images, at each pixel coordinate, you're looking down through the stack, and there's applying some rule as to what pixel intensity and what pixel you're picking. So for a max intensity projection, you're looking down through the stack and picking the brightest pixel. For a min intensity, you'd be looking down and picking the dimmest pixel. So I will exit the PowerPoint and do those commands. or I will attempt to. There we go. So here's my merge folder. Let's go ahead and drag and drop it. Virtual stack can be very useful if you don't have a lot of RAM on your computer and you are crashing Fiji if you're trying to load things in or it's loading in really slowly. Virtual stack will only have the images open in front of you that are actually being used, and this can help save space. I, however, have a ton of RAM in this computer, and these aren't very big image files. So this is what I see in front of me. I can scroll while hovering over top of it. And you can see that, well, I can see a lot of nuclei going through the stack. The processes of the microglia you can't really tell exactly how they're connected. We have now taken this folder called merge, drag and dropped it into Fiji and clicked OK to open it. And now we have a nice little Z stack. So we cannot see all the microglia projections very well together yet. And we can go image, stacks, Z project, and we can try a maximum intensity projection and see what that looks like. So now you can see all of the cells much more clearly and what's going on, the ones in red being our cells of interest. This makes a really great picture if you want a representative image for publication. However, for the analysis we're going to be doing, there's a lot of processes that run into each other. So for the purposes of this example, we're actually going to be using a standard deviation projection. So we can do this again and we can go standard deviation and okay. So this one is not nearly as bright, but it is going to be the one that we're going to want to work with. There was a question in the chat earlier about what 3D projecting looks like. So I'm just going to take a quick sidebar and show you what that does. So you can go stacks, 3D project. These are 0.45. This number is always 0.21 for me, but they are 0.45 micron stacks. But I have made an error. Can anyone tell me what it is? Because what I have not done yet is set the scale. Now, my distance in pixels for this has been determined by this text file. So I am at 0.207 micrometers per pixel. This is spat out by the confocal microscope that we worked on to collect these images. So for 1 pixel, we are going 0.207 microns, and the aspect ratio is 1. We want to apply this to all of them, so we click global, and then we click OK. And now we can go image, stacks, 3D project. It's a 0.45 image stack, and click OK. And what is this doing? That is very weird. My Fiji updated this morning, so that might have something to do with it. I will try one more time, and if not, I will troubleshoot that off camera and drop that in chat later. Yeah, okay, so it looks like either my slices are showing up as time points. That could be one source of the problem, or there's something new from my update this morning that I need to figure out still. So we'll sidebar that for now. But to refresh what we've done so far is we've loaded in our image, we've projected it 2 different ways, and we are going to move forward with this projection. So I will go back to my slides, and we've gotten to here. Now we have a single image, and for the purposes of this example, we'll stay with the standard deviation image. But if you've noticed, there are cell nuclei and microglia, but we're only interested in the microglia. So we need to work with one of the channels and not both. So that's fine. We can go to image, color, and split channels to fix this. And what this will do is we'll split everything into red, green, and blue. For making your analysis as easy as possible, it is easier if you don't pseudo-color your images on your microscope before you export them in order for this to work really well. So you'll see 3 new boxes get created. They'll all be in grayscale. They'll all be 8-bit, which is fabulous, which is what we want to move forward with to work with. If you are doing this on your own and you only have a single channel, you will have to go image type 8-bit in order to move on with the analysis. So we have a red channel and a blue channel, which will both be populated with either the microglia or the nuclei. I'll have a green channel, which won't have anything in it. From there, we'll be ready to adjust the threshold. So we'll go to image, adjust threshold. This box over here will appear. We want, actually, this should be check, not uncheck. We want don't reset range to be checked. dark background will be checked. And then we always have to click set before we click apply. So for when we go back and you guys work with it yourselves, you can play with the sliders and find a setting that visualizes as much of the microglia morphology as possible without having cells run together. You can also play with this drop-down menu here to try the different methods of thresholding that are available. So whenever you're designing a workflow for your own images, it's really good to save images in process so you don't have to start and open things from the beginning every single time. And then you can try, 10, 12 different ways of thresholding. When I started, I just tried all of them for fun. And then I presented them to my lab being like, well, here's everything that I tried. And this is clearly the one that worked the best. So we'll go ahead and do that now. So this is standard deviation.
Hannah, sorry to interrupt. We just have one question in the chat.
Yes.
Where did you attain the information about the pixel, like the actual size scale?
So this is when I do my microscopy, I'm using a confocal. It's the FlowView 1000 at UVic. And when I am taking my images, I tell the computer what lens I have selected, and it knows how zoomed I am. And from that, the computer calculates what my what this ratio is. And every time I get my images saved, it saves each individual image all in channel 1, channel 2, both of them together, and also this text file. Does that answer the question?
And then there's a follow-up question of how you exported that text file.
The text file exports automatically for me on the microscope that I use. So this is a very microscope specific thing, I think. If you are using bright field that doesn't have anything like this, you can always take a picture of your scale bar at the same magnification that you are taking your images at, with everything set the same, and then do what you saw in part 1, where you measure a line across the image of a known distance and go in that way. This is just a little bit faster if you have the ability to do it that way.
Great, thank you.
All right. Thank you for the question. So I'm going to minimize this now that we have this entered. And so we have this single image now, and it has put a box on it, which I don't want. So we want to split the channels. We can go image, color, split channels. Now we can see we have all the cell nuclei. Don't care about those. Green channel, nothing's there. We have the red channel, which actually has our microglia in it. So this is what we want to work with. So now we can threshold. So to threshold, it has to be a grayscale 8-bit image. If you don't, what you do is you go image type 8-bit. So we will go image adjust threshold. And so we want to make sure we have dark background checked. So it's actually thresholding our microglia, not something else. And then we can adjust the sliders as need be, or you can go in and try, what does this one do? Or what does this one do? And see what they do. So a lot of them don't really work very well with these images. I have always ended up working with some variation of default in all of my analysis. So these two cells are running together, which isn't great, but we're seeing a lot of processes here, which is what I want to see. And for my actual analysis, I do obsess over these settings a bit more than I will today, but this is an approximation. So you want to click set. It'll bring up this box. It's like, are you sure? Okay. And then we will click apply. And this is a new thing that has only been happening for me in the last couple of days. It doesn't seem to make a difference, but if you find that it is messing with your stuff, you just go process binary options and invert LUT. So that should be good. I'm not sure why this is showing up as red. So that is weird. In some cases, you can control Z and undo and just try things again. And we will go ahead and go process binary options as it said, and click black background, okay, as it told us to do, and see if that changes anything. So we have our pretty little cells.
Questions coming for you, Hannah, in the chat if you want to take a look. One about blurring filters, and there's another one after that.
Okay, I see. From a best practice and ethics standpoint, is it acceptable to blur the image with a Gaussian filter before thresholding just so the binarized image ends up cleaner? I would have to refer you to Mickey from part 1 on the ethics. I think she's the expert with that. What I would say is anything you do that's for publication, you have to kind of tell people what you do. So if you do that, put it in the workflow and state that that's what you did and have a methods figure with an example of like why you did it and why it looks that way. So for the next question, what analysis we need to do first? Keep a brighter projection so you can keep the processes intact. Sometimes I need to count the number of microglia. In that case, I don't need the bright processes. Exactly. So Tom makes a good point is I'm doing this because I want to see the shape characteristics of my microglia. If I were wanting to just count the total number of cells, I do not need to keep that. And I will have a much more accurate representation of what cell bodies is in the second point. Or in the, yeah. So the workflow that this is coming from was actually a bright field workflow where we had the capability of taking stacks that were stitched at 100x. So we had hundreds and hundreds of cells. So we're able to look at a lot of morphology at once. So yes, definitely making sure you know why you're doing and what the output is before you start designing something is a very good way to go. So let's go set, okay, and apply. There we go. So that's what we want to see for that. Now, in some cases, things do not like this type of LUT setting. So we can go image, lookup tables, invert LUT. This wasn't happening when I was testing this yesterday, but sometimes it seems to be turning out black on white and sometimes white on black. And that's fine either way, as long as you have it as this is your final output. So now I will go back to the PowerPoint. So now that we have a threshold image, we can look at particle analysis. So the whole reason why we're doing this is to look at particle analysis. So it can take you from having this cell to this outline, which can be analyzed by the computer. You have to figure out your parameters first. This step is a lot of trial and error. So for particle analysis, we'll go back to our thresholded image. Before we need to do any measuring, we have to set scale, which we did already. Next, we need to pick what we want to measure. So we go to the Analyze, Set Measurements, and click Area and Shape Descriptors for this example. And then we can run our particle analysis. So you just go Analyze, Analyze Particles. It's important that we have, for me, I think it's important to have overlays selected as an output. So you can go in and do a sanity check and make sure it's output something that you actually can analyze. A good example of why this is really important is if you have a very, very large data set acquired by multiple people, or if something happened where an image is partially or completely out of focus, cells will appear more blob-like if you're doing morphology, and this can be a problem. You can also gate to what size you want to include, and in some cases to circularity. So I will go back and do that. All right. So we have this image now. We want to go Analyze, Set Measurements. We want area and we want shape descriptors. Okay, make sure I have it selected. Analyze, Analyze Particles. Let's go 10 to 500. This is in micrometers. We don't want pixel units right now. And we want to show overlay, or sorry, outlines. Then we click OK. And so it gives us these outlines so we can see how well it actually was able to capture things. So in this case, I wouldn't think this isn't something I would go forward with for analysis. And we have a summary of the count and total area, average size. And for our results, we have a spreadsheet that can be saved as an Excel file of every cell and its area, circularity, roundness, and solidity. The really cool thing about this is these numbers actually, if you look at this, correspond. Oh, let me try and have both of these things on the screen at once. So 11 here will correspond to line 11. So if there's a particular cell, you're like, I wonder how circular this one is. Well, you can go in and see how it is done that way. If you're just wanting to count cells, you can always just do this and like look at how many you have as an output and then put that into your spreadsheet. So I would like to check in with everyone and see if people have the files yet. Did that process automatically emit shapes that intersect with the border? Not in this case, but you can, it depends on whether or not you have exclude on edges checked. Finally downloaded. Oh, yes. Wonderful. I'm seeing a lot of yeses in the chat. That's really nice to hear. Okay. So now that we've gone through the thresholding and particle analysis, I will go ahead and put these slides back up. And you can start by opening the file. I'll give a couple of minutes, then I'll check in to see how that went for everybody. And then I will move on to this one and I'll give you guys a couple of minutes and check in and see how it went. So I will put 2 minutes on the clock for this first part. Was the plugin that was used for particle analysis? Yes, it's one of the ones that comes standard with Fiji. And when you guys have opened and Z projected your images, go ahead and pop it, say done in the chat so I know to move on. What parameters do I need to select for 3D projection? We're not doing a 3D projection today. We're just going to do a Z projection and let's do standard deviation. The scale of the image, again, we can do that part later if you want, but the scale of the image is 0.207 micrometers per pixel. You didn't see the dialog box when you dropped and merged the folder in Fiji. That's very interesting. That might be to do with most of the weirdness I've seen has come down to the version of Fiji you're running. But as long as it comes up and not as 60 individual images, I'm not super concerned. So, Jarrett, if you have the scale set, which you don't need to do right this second, I'm going to go back to the previous slide so everyone can see it. So I'm seeing, not sure how to open all pictures together. They open separately in 62 different pictures. That sounds super annoying. So did you take the folder and drag and drop it onto the Fiji bar? If you select all the pictures like with a Control A and drag and drop those, that will open them all individually. You have to go up a level and to actually take the whole file and drag and drop it into Fiji. When you drag the whole folder, it doesn't want to do anything. I think one person has gotten quite ahead, so I will hold to address that. You're getting 1,500 data points. That's probably not from gating it. When you drag the whole folder, it doesn't do anything at all. That might be to do with how much RAM you have or the speed of your Fiji. I'm guessing if you leave it for 20 minutes, it'll go ahead and open then. Doesn't work for Mac when dragging. Is there any people who are Mac users? Oh, sorry, that's an incorrect number I just put in chat. 0.207. There we go. Ava says dragging does work for Mac. So standard deviation, if you go to image, stacks, and Z project, it will bring up a dialog box. And in that dialog box, there's a drop-down menu, and that's where you can find standard deviation. So we're having some problems dragging the whole merge folder. The people who are doing that, are you guys doing on your laptops? Or are you on like an older computer or on a newer computer? Like what are your parameters?
Is
You
it
can-
possible for them to do like import image sequence instead, maybe from file, instead of just dragging it? Would that work?
You can definitely try that. Okay, people on the 2021 MacBooks, like you definitely should have, like these should not be hard files to open. Okay, some people are getting it working. Oh yeah, you definitely have to make sure that that you've decompressed and extracted the files to your desktop and aren't trying to drag and drop the zipped folder into Fiji. That won't work. Okay. I'm going to go to the next slide because it seems like a number of people are good to go. And we'll keep answering questions in chat while we do that. All right, I'm going to give you guys another couple minutes on the clock to try to get through the thresholding. And for people who are working on this, please also go ahead and pop done in the chat when you have gotten through that. The don't reset range stops it. So if you are working with a bunch of images that are together and you make this one nice threshold that you've adjusted, and then you have don't reset range unchecked, it will put your nicely adjusted threshold for the first top image in your stack, and then it will auto calculate everything for every single other image. So if you want to have the adjustments apply to your entire stack and not just the first image in your stack, you need to have the don't reset range checked. The scale is in the chat. It was 0.207 micrometers per pixel. And make sure it's check, not uncheck, don't reset range. This was a typo on my part. All right, we have someone saying it's binarized. Good job, Albert. All right, is anybody not ready for me to move on? Not hearing anything? All right. Oh, 30 seconds. Sounds good. How about another minute? Keep it checked for the example. Default threshold. And then you can play with the sliders at the top and the bottom until it looks a way that you're happy with. Oh, yeah. So this was something that has come up with a recent update in Fiji. And I'm actually going to just leave this for a second because it is a very weird thing that seems to be going. Okay. So you have to go to, I believe it is process, binary, and then options. And then you have to check this black background or it turns up as red. So process, binary, options, and I'll just leave that there for a sec. And then I'm just going to drop in the chat. All right, that's been another 2 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and move on for now. So for people who have gotten to their binary option, people who haven't, you can keep working on it. And then we can run the analyze particles for those of you who have gotten to your binary image. For people saying, so I see that one person in the chat saying it opened individually. Can you tell me exactly what it is that you tried that made it do that? Okay. You have to unzip the folder and extract it to the desktop. The pathway to get it thresholded is image adjust threshold.
So Hannah.
Yep.
We are coming up on the time for part
I
2.
see that. I'm looking, looks like a co-localization case study won't be something we have time for, hey?
Well, I think we should be okay if we reduce the break to 5 minutes and maybe delay it by 5 or 10 minutes if you want to keep going.
All right.
We could do like just do people's thumbs up reaction if they want to see the co-localization.
Yeah, let's maybe do that. So for the person who got 1500 cells detected, this is because of this thing here where you have the size gating. I knocked out anything that was below 10 micrometers squared because I knew that was going to be just junk in the background.
There were about 16 thumbs ups for co-localizations.
Okay. Well,
So,
people can always take the break if they want, and I can just keep talking.
yeah, that's fair.
Okay, that also might be because you didn't set the scale then, responding to the chat. And when people have their outlines, it does have water shedding. That is something you can definitely get into as well. There's a really good website. It's the process menu for Fiji. It's a really, really great resource. I'd recommend checking it out. Yeah, and to Amanda, yes, that's correct. In this case, I just want you to see that you can work through it. It doesn't have to be perfect. As long as you can see outlines, you know that you're able to get to the end. And then for your own images, you can go back and troubleshoot. If it's clumpy, that's fine. When I did this for my thing that went for publication, I spent months going back and forth and trying different things before I found something I was perfectly happy with. And yeah, it's not imperative that it's perfect for today. How do I set the scale to micrometers per pixels? Because when I go to it's you just enter the 1 pixel and then 0.207 in the micrometers box. Can you do particle analysis in 3D and get the volumes of these? I believe that's something that Fiji can do. That's not something, though, that is in the parameters of today's workshop. Yeah, actually, the water shedding will be done in the find maxima function, which we're using in the next example, I believe. Basically, I think it finds individual maxima points based on your settings and then creates a single like particle outline around them. Yes. The problem was the inverted scale. Okay. So people who input 0.207 pixels per micrometer versus micrometer per pixel, we're getting 1500 particles. You have to select outlines in this drop-down box to get outlines. Your cell number will be different depending on what particular threshold you used. If you see something like outlines, I am happy with what you have gotten.
Okay, I think
All right.
in the interest of time, we should try the colocalization one and
I can
go from there. Okay.
So, okay, colocalization is very commonly used. So we're going to look at, basically, we take one channel and we use it to create a gate for a second channel and then analyze that second channel. So we have a cell with some protein clusters stained in red. We want to know if the treatment we have given our rats increases or decreases how much of this protein is found on these cells. There's some background fluorescence for both channels. We want to select only objects that are the cells. And within that, we want to measure how much protein there is and how big the protein clusters are. So how can we do this? The first thing, as I believe was mentioned earlier in the chat, is having a plan. So in this case, our plan is to figure out how big and bright our cells are, select only pixels in the blue channel that meet our criteria, use thresholding to do this. In this case, we'll be using find maxima. We want to use the outlines of the blue cells to select what areas to measure in the red channel. Then we want to determine what is background and what is signal in our channel using thresholding. And then we want to analyze the size of our red particles. So this redoes the particle analysis and the thresholding from the earlier example, but it's a bit more complicated. Afterwards, we'll be able to go over to part 3, where you can learn about how to automate these things. So this is a shorter example, hopefully. We're going to start by opening the file cert clusters, which is a single image. The scale is the same as before, so if your scale set correctly, you don't have to change anything as long as you had global checked. We're going to go image, color, split channels, get rid of the green channel. On the blue channel, we're going to go process and find maxima, prominence 200, and output type maximum with intolerance. We're going to use the image calculator to gate the red channel to where the blue nuclei are. We're going to use this doing the image calculator in the AND function. We're going to use process filter minimum, which is the same thing as eroding. So we're going to like prune like one level around the cells. This is because in some of the images, the cells are very close together. Now a threshold, we need to invert the LUT if it's giving you the white on black instead of black on white. In this case, we're going to do 0.1% of the brightest pixels, and then we'll analyze the particles. So I will briefly go through what this will look like, and then I will leave you to do that example, take a break, and pass you on to part 3. And there we go. So don't need that anymore. Cert clusters. And this comes up every time. I'm going to disable the messages, not the global calibration, because I know that it's correct. So we see that we have these blue cells and we have red that's on the blue cells. So image, color, split channels. Great. We want this channel and we want this channel. So now you can see where the red is around these cells. Now we're going to go process, blue channel selected, and then find maxima. We're going to use maximum with intolerance, and the prominence is 200. This was experimentally determined. We can go preview if you want, and then we're going to go click OK. So that basically binarizes just our cells. We can now get rid of this old image. And now we can go process. Image calculator, which is right here. We want to pick the AND function. And we want to make sure we have the red and the blue. In this case, because it's AND, it doesn't matter which one's top and which one's bottom. And we want to create a new window with it. So now we have basically this channel, but only where this channel was thresholded. So now we're going to go process, filters, minimum, 2 pixels is fine. Okay. So now we have stopped cells that are next to each other from bleeding into each other. And now we can go image, adjust threshold. I want it to be a 0.1% threshold in this case, also experimentally determined. You can click set, okay, apply, very nice. And then we can go analyze, set measurements. Now we don't need the shape descriptors, okay. Analyze particles, we want the outlines. We want to get rid of this. So this can go back to 0 to infinity. And then we want to click OK. And so now we get all the particles and the area and the readout. So now we have a little bit of time left. I'm going to go ahead and go back to the instructions on the slides and see if you guys are able to get through that. And I will go ahead and answer and help you guys troubleshoot in the chat while that happens.
Okay. So I think while people are working through that, we can also consider this time the break.
Mm-hmm.
So if anyone has to step away, feel free to do it now. And we'll start part 3 at 2. Sound okay?
I would also recommend everyone to download the files that you'll need for part 3. So they are just called the ImageJ_examples. You can just download that as a zip folder and extract it somewhere that you can find it easily.
Radius of filter minimum at the 2 pixel standard is fine. And there is a request in the chat to, so there's a really good picture of what this does in the, if you look up Fiji process menu, but basically it's will erode the pixel. So if there's a bright white spot and black all around it, it will chew 1 level of pixel, or in this case, if we have it set to do 2 levels of pixels around it and shrink it. This was put in the macro, this is a small part of a larger macro, because often these cells are right next to each other, and it helps to separate them better. How did I decide to threshold to 0.1%? This was experimentally determined. This also isn't the exact threshold we use in the bigger macro, but it does give you clusters that you'd expect to see. It is exactly the erosion filter, yeah. Determine prominence and decide the threshold. Experimentally determined. The way we actually did it in the main macro is we have language that's a bit more complicated than what I wanted to teach here, but we have it where it goes and calculates the histogram for every image individually and then takes 2% of that histogram. But in this case, when we have everything, 0.1 just works best for the example. How would I distinguish each blue cell is recognized as several data points? No, there are 5 cells in the picture. And then in the red one, the protein clusters are individual. Also in the bigger macro, there's other language that excludes cells that aren't 25 clusters, even though there should be 5. No, 25 seems good. I have not figured out how to increase the font size other than control plussing it until I can see things. And our resident expert has answered the question. Thank you so much. So in the larger macro as well for the blue nuclei, we also care about what shape the nuclei are because they are lymphocytes. So we've also applied exclusion criteria that will get rid of cells that don't have a nuclei of the correct shape to make sure we are actually looking at lymphocytes.
Okay, there's a couple more questions in the chat if you want to answer those before we move on.
Sounds good. Looks like some people are helping each other, which is really nice to see. Would you compare the average values from all clusters to the untreated group? So what they were, this was a project that belongs to Kayleen. So I think what they were looking at was the number and size of the CERT clusters on their lymphocytes and comparing both the number and the size between their treated and untreated groups. What is the function? The AND function or?
Yeah, I think it was the AND function that I'm curious about.
Yeah. What is the function? It basically takes only pixels that are in both images. So it has to be the white thresholded pixel in the blue channel and also whatever is in the red channel and just creates an image from those two. All right. I think
Okay.
it's time that I
Thank
pass
you,
on.
Hannah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for everyone's patience with the technical difficulties, and I'm super excited to pass it on to Jeff and Amy for the macro section.
Thanks, Hannah. So if anyone has any more questions about what Hannah presented, feel free to throw questions into the chat while we're diving into part 3. Yeah, so part 3, we're going to extend, I think, what Hannah was hinting at when she was talking about her larger macro. You're starting to link these processing steps into workflows, and it becomes natural to want them a macro so that things can happen automatically once you have all the steps worked out and thresholds determined and things like that. So this section, Amy and I will present it. So when you're ready, Amy, go ahead and we'll get started.
Okay, so the dynamic brain circuits here at UBC offers Data Binge, which is a virtual meeting that occurs every Friday from 12:30 to 1:30. And here people can come with any coding analysis or statistical questions, and we have our neuro data tutors to help support that. And so if you have any further questions with your ImageJ analyses, for example, you're welcome to come by and join DataBinge. You can just email Jeff or email the Brain Circuits email, and we can get you connected with that. So again, I guess with all of the technical issues with downloads, we should probably get started on that if you have not started downloading. So where these files are, they are on our OSF page. It is specifically this ImageJ_examples component. And I will send the link again into the chat. So get started on that, download it as a zip and then extract it somewhere so that you can have that handy when we get to the how-to parts. So what are macros? Well, macros is essentially short for macro instructions. And these are small scripts that contain a set of instructions that can be run within your program. So they're really great for automating time-consuming and repetitive tasks. You can create a macro by just recording a series of steps that you did in a program. Once these steps are captured by the macro, you can then run the macro to essentially replay the steps in the program. So ImageJ has over 300 example macros on their website. So let's see if I can show you all that really quickly. So these are all the macros that they have. So you can play around with them and try them out. And those are the examples. But today we're going to be making our own macros in part 3. So I think, Jeff, you can talk briefly about some of the macro examples.
Yeah, so macros crop up all over the place. You can find them in Microsoft products. You can use them to cheat in video games if you're so inclined, and Photoshop and other places. So next slide, please, Amy. Yeah, so as a first step for creating the macros, we're just gonna, Amy will do an example of a super simple, straightforward macro using the macro recorder to show us just how it's done. And this will just involve rotating an image.
Yep, so I will run through these steps and show you all how these steps work and then put these steps up for you to see, and then you can try it on your own. So if everybody has the files, the first thing I'm going to do is, oh, that's the wrong slide. So I'm going to open ImageJ here. So here I have ImageJ. I'm going to go to plugins, macro is up here, and then record. So now anything I do in ImageJ will be recorded here. So our macro is going to be rotating an image. So I'm just going to call mine rotator. So the next step is I'm going to open a single JPEG. So I'm going to go to File, Open. I'm going to open up examples. There is a single JPEG folder, and I'm just going to open this. And it is an image of a cool looking brain. And you can see that my macro has already recorded this step, open, and then there's the file path to where this file is found. So then I'm going to go to Image, Transform, and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees to the right. And you can see that's also been recorded by the macro. So that's all I wanted to do. So I'm going to press Create to make it stop recording. And then Fiji has this very nice thing where this window will pop up. And it's pretty obvious that I can just press Run right here to run it. So I'm going to close this and show you that it works. So that's working. But if you're working in ImageJ, you would probably need to do File, Save As, save it somewhere you can find. And then you would have to go into plugins, macro, and then actually have to run it through ImageJ itself. So then I am going to give everybody about 2 minutes to try that out on your own. And I'll check back in to see how everybody is doing.
So while people are working on it, Amy, there's a question in the chat about running macros from within macros. So maybe we can try this on your macro example with the rotator.
Okay, sure. Okay.
So if you go back a step to the macro recorder,
Oh, oops.
and then can you, yeah, there we go.
Yeah, so
So
that's
the answer is yes.
yeah, you can do a nested macro if you want.
Okay, go back to the slides of the instructions. Thanks.
Okay, so that's been about 2 minutes. How is everybody doing? If you're done, you can send a done in the chat or give a thumbs up. Okay, so we've got quite a few thumbs up, so I will be moving on to the next part. So here are just some things to keep in mind about macros. So macros will record everything you do in the program, even if you don't want it to. So that's why sometimes after you're done recording your actions, you should double check your macro to see if it has anything in there that you don't want it to. And also make sure that everything that you will need to do for your task has to be done after the macro recording has started. So if you have to open files, make sure to open those after your macro recorder has started. And the macro will perform your actions in the order that you took them. So it will not do a different kind of order or start from bottom up. And also as a reminder that you have to press create and then close the recorder in order to stop the macro from recording all of the other things that you're doing that you don't want. So now Jeff is going to talk about some mesoscale calcium imaging.
Yeah, so this is just to motivate the macro example that we'll work on after the simple rotator example. So mesoscale calcium imaging, this is something that we rely on in the Center for Brain Health in studying mouse models of human diseases. So essentially we're using a transgenic mouse that expresses the calcium sensor called GCAMP throughout the dorsal cortex. And it turns out that that sensor is so bright and the mouse's skull is so thin that if you just use an epifluorescence type fluorescence macroscope, you can image the brain activity of the dorsal cortex through the skull while the animal is awake and doing tasks. So we've used this to assess functional connectivity in the cortex in different scenarios and different disease models. It's something that was pioneered at UBC, but is now in use all over the world. So next slide, please, Amy. So this is just kind of an example of what this typically looks like. So I don't know if the video is playing. Amy, can you start it playing if it's not playing? But basically, you're seeing an image of the cortex, the green fluorescence coming to the camera. But the changes are not very large. So typically what we do to enhance our ability to detect the fluorescent changes that correspond to the brain activity is we calculate this thing called delta F over F, which is really just the fractional change in fluorescence from some baseline. And if you look at the panel below, you can see an example where we given a mouse water droplets and presented this montage of delta F over F images. And you can see the anterior parts of the cortex light up when the water droplet reaches the animal's tongue. Okay, next slide, please. So the problem with this technique is really that it's extremely time consuming for the person doing the experiments. So we have to bring each mouse to our imaging setup, head fix the mouse, image them for somewhere in the range of 30 minutes to an hour, return them to their home cage. And with typical group sizes in studies where we want to have 5 to 10 animals, this can easily take someone all day just to image their animals at one time point. So we started working on something where the mice can head fix themselves and initiate the imaging on their own. So everything happens in their home cage without any intervention from the experimenter. So again, something that we were pioneering at UBC and is catching on and being developed by other groups around the world. Next slide, please. So when you get this thing working, then that means you have potentially hundreds of recordings per day. So these graphs in this slide are showing you the number of entries on the top and the number of head fixes and imaging sessions that the mice initiated by themselves. So you can see that some of those bars in the head fixes per day graph reach like 200. So this means you have 200 recordings that you were not present for when they were taken. So you don't have the same kind of confidence in the data that you might have otherwise had if you've been there doing the experiment with the animals. So this is enough data, and it comes in an avalanche each morning that you really need some automation in order to keep up with it. And the macro that we're going to build now is basically a somewhat simplified version of the one that I actually used when we were doing these studies to do quality control on the data. Next slide, please. Okay, so Amy's gonna lead you through the steps to create this macro, which calculates the fractional change in fluorescence, the DFF. And the images that we're going to use, these are also stacks, but not X, Y, Z stacks like we saw in some of the earlier examples. The extra dimension here is time. And so we're going to turn on the macro recorder and then go through all of the steps to calculate the DFF. And then once the macro is recorded, we can use it with a built-in function in ImageJ to batch process a whole group of files. So Amy, maybe you can take it from here.
Yep. So if you weren't here for the morning session, you might have missed Mickey's part on the image arithmetic, but I'm going to do a recap. So for some of you, this might be familiar. For some of you, this might be a pretty new concept. So all electronic or digital images are made of these pixels, and typically each pixel has a value that indicates how bright the pixel is. So 0, it's a pretty dark pixel, it probably looks black, and the higher you go, the brighter it looks. So image arithmetic compares two images pixel by pixel, and then performs the chosen operation on each pair of pixel values So these images show addition. So adding one pixel value to the other, you can see that after we add these two images together, it looks a lot brighter. And there are also other functions as well. So how are we going to calculate the DFF? So we're going to use the equation that we saw in previous slides and image arithmetic to calculate the DFF of every pixel in our image and essentially visualize it across the entire brain. So we can calculate the average fluorescence for our XYT stack by creating a projection of the stack. So this will become the F0 over here. Then for each image in our XYT stack, we will subtract our projection and then divide by our projection to get the DFF. So that's the F minus F0 divided by F0. And this will give us a stack of DFF images. So I'm going to do the steps and show you all how to do the steps, and I'll leave the steps up so that you can try it yourself. So I already have ImageJ open, and I am going to go to File, Open, and instead of single JPEG, I want to look at the single TIFF. So I will open the single TIFF. So that's the video that we saw in the slides. So this is the XYT stack. So we have essentially our X, our Y, and the T was represented by this slider that shows us what the brain looks like as time goes. So time points, or the number of frames, 925 up here in the upper left corner, and then 256 by 256 pixels. That's our XY dimensions. So now we're going to try actually calculating the DFF. So we have ImageJ open, and I'm going to close this. So plugins, macro, record. I'm going to name this one DFF underscore image. Then file, open, and I'm going to open the single TIFF. I will want to rename this. So I am going to rename this to current. So to do that, I'll go to image, rename, and just call this current. So now I'm going to scale the image smaller. I'm going to go to image, scale, and I'm going to make the X and Y 0.5. And it's going to be called the current one. And it'll be faster to process a smaller image. So then I'm going to select current one, and then I am going to go to image, stacks, and then a Z project. So we want it to be on average intensity, and then just press OK. So that'll give us the average intensity projection. So now this is where we're going to do the image arithmetic. I'm going to close the original. I'm going to go to Process, Image Calculator, and then subtract average current one from current one. So we want current one at the top, average current one at the bottom. And then I'm going to press OK and process all 925. And then we're going to do the division part now. So we're going to go to Process, Image Calculator, and we're going to divide results of current one by average current one. So result on the top, average on the bottom, and then want to do the 32-bit result. Okay. So next step, we want to do basically delete everything that we don't want. So to do this, you can go to Window. So we don't want result of current one anymore, so we're going to get rid of that. We do not want average, so we're also going to get rid of that. And we don't want current one anymore, so we're going to get rid of that. So now we're going to adjust the brightness and contrast. So I'm going to go to Image, Adjust, Brightness and Contrast. We're going to do Set. So this is going to be negative 0.02, and the maximum will be 0.2 positive. So essentially what this is doing is we're scaling the gray values from negative 0.2 to 20, from negative 2 to 20% changes. So that's done, and let's take a look at our macro, and we're going to press create. So I know someone in the chat asked if you can just add to your macro later after you're saving it. You totally can. You just have to open up this macro editor, and then you should be able to add lines that you want. So just to make sure that this works, I'm going to close this and then, oh, I think we might be missing, okay, yes. One more step is that you would need to change the colors for this to make it more obvious if you want. So to do that, you would go to your process, is it process? Image lookup table, sorry. Image, your lookup tables, and then I'm going to do 16 colors. So I missed that step, so you guys just remember to do that while the macro recorder is open. So that's what you should aim for, something colorful like this, and when you drag it, you can see the changes a lot more easier than in the raw footage. So I am going to just click run and see if this works. Yep, so I got my black and white version because I missed the lookup table when I was doing the macro, but you guys can remember to do that, and that just goes to show that you really have to remember to have your macro open and recording to get everything you want it to do.
Sorry, if I can ask a quick question. So you can't add that color step right now in the code?
You can, so if you know like the actual commands, like run, I believe it's run
okay.
16 colors, you could just add that in now.
Yeah,
Okay, so
often,
you have to know the syntax of the commands. Okay.
Yeah.
So when I forget a step, I usually don't remember what the ImageJ command is actually called. I just open another macro recorder, do that one step, and then copy it over to the macro that I'm trying to build up.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, that
works.
also
All right.
works.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna save my DFF image macro because we're going to need it for batch processing. So I save that into my examples. So I'm gonna put these steps back up for everybody and give you all 3 minutes to try it out, and I'll check back in. And if someone wants me to go to the next slide, just let me know in the chat. Okay, so that was 3 minutes. How are we doing? Give me a thumbs up if you're ready to move on to batch processing. Okay, we've got some good to go. So if you still need some time, let me know now and we can do another minute or two. And all the slides are on the OSF page. They're all there on the PDF. Okay, so we have more time, so we'll stay on this slide for another minute or two. Payman, can you walk me through what you did?
Is it okay if I speak? I think it'll be easier.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so just did I scaled the plot. Then I basically took an average over the whole like all the slices. Then I subtracted the slices from the average, and then I divided by the average. And once I divided, then it became like very weird color.
Did you subtract stuff from the average, or did you subtract the average from things?
I think I subtracted the stuff from average, so the average from the slices. But I will double check again to see if the
Yeah, maybe
order
double
was
check.
right.
Yeah, because the subtraction order can be a bit confusing, so maybe double check if you did that part.
Okay.
Okay, everyone, for the interest of time, I'm going to be moving on to the batch processing. But like I said before, all of these slides, the PDF versions of them are on our OSF page. So far our macro gives us the delta F over F for a single file, but wouldn't it be great if we could just have this go through a stack of TIFFs? So in some cases, macros can be used on multiple files without more coding. We can just use the batch function that's in ImageJ. So essentially we can do process, batch, macro. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to be doing process, batch, then macro to calculate DFF for 5 stacks all at once, and then those will get saved into an output folder. So like always, I will be going through these steps, and then I will give you all time to do these on your own. So I'm going to go into my workshop folder, and I'm just going to make a new folder called output. So now I am going to open up process, batch, and then macro. So I will set my input to be the 5 TIFF files folder. That's going to be my input. And then my output is going to be the output folder that I made earlier, right here. So essentially what you want to do is you want to open up your macro So I'm just going to grab it and then drag and drop it into ImageJ. And then this is my macro. So I've already copied and pasted it. So what you want to do is I'll just delete all of this. You want to Control A, that's what I do, to select everything. And then I'm going to paste it into this white box. There's one thing that you want to comment out. It's the open line at the very top, because the open line will open that single TIFF, but we don't want that. We want to process this macro on the input folder that we set. So now once I have this set up, I am just going to press process. And you can see that ImageJ is working away at this. And it's done processing all of them. So let's see if it did what we wanted. So I'm just going to drag and drop them to double check. All of them are colorful and nice. Okay, great. So the batch processing worked. So I'm going to give everybody 3-ish minutes to try that out as well.
Maybe there's a question from Tom. You see it?
Yeah, I just saw it.
Okay.
Yeah, Tom, I believe that's what the 16 color process is doing. Okay, so that was 3 minutes. How is everybody doing? Thumbs up if you're if you've got the batch processing to work. Okay, we've got 9 thumbs up. Leave a comment if you would like another minute or two to work on that. Okay, 1 more minute it is. Okay, so our minute is up, so I'm going to go ahead and just finish things off. So here are some additional resources that you can consult for some more information and help on ImageJ. So there's something from these are all from the NIH, and there is also a previous workshop that we did in collaboration with iCord. And you can see the resources from that at this OSF page. And that workshop was a more advanced ImageJ workshop that demonstrated how to edit macro code and how to actually integrate it into Python. And again, if you are UBC based, you are welcome to come by DataBinge. It's an online interactive meeting where we want to help tackle coding challenges and introduce participants to new approaches in data science. And this is happening every Friday at 12:30 to 1:30, hosted by the Dynamic Brain Circuits Research Cluster. So like before, if you have any additional questions about what we did in this workshop, or you're having difficulties with your own analysis, then you're welcome to attend. And you can email Jeff at jeffrey.ledoux@ubc.ca if you would like to attend DataBinge. So that's all from me for the DBC macro workshop.
Okay, thank you, Amy. And yeah, like Hannah said in the chat, we're not hosting DataBinge this Friday due to the holiday, but we will be back the following week. So please do email me if you're interested, and I can send you the Zoom links and contact info for that. So any questions for Amy? I think we can take questions for Amy first, or if there's more questions for Hannah, maybe she can address those as well at this point. Okay. Well, it doesn't seem like there's questions at this point, but if things do occur to you, please reach out. We're here, we're happy to help. DataBinge will be going on for the next 2 years at least, after our funding was renewed this year, so it's in good shape. And thank you all for coming. Thanks, Amy, Hannah, Moon, Mickey, Guang for answering questions in the chat. Thanks everyone for all the questions in the chat. That was fantastic. Way to make the thing interactive. So I guess we can stay on for a few more minutes if there's questions from people. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Thanks everyone for the workshop. I was just wondering, do you guys have any tips for batch processing images where you have multiple channels and you're trying to adjust maybe like a set brightness and contrast for each image, then merging them into a composite file? I seem to have issues when you record your macro because you have to select each file while you're doing that. It doesn't work with the batch because it keeps trying to look for the file, that original one you recorded from.
Yeah. So that problem about the original file, this is part of the reason why we did the renaming of the window in the example that Amy walked through. We named it current or something like that, just so that when we were creating the macro with the macro recorder, you don't end up having that original file name stamped on every single step of your final macro. And then if you want to generalize it, then you have to go back and find all the instances of that annoying name and remove them and change them. So that's one strategy for trying to deal with that. And I have definitely found cases where I tried to do a macro recorder macro and then use it with the batch processor and it doesn't work. Could not figure out why. And in that case, this is when you have to start adding more commands programmatically. So I think, Hannah, did you have an example of this in your slides that we didn't touch on?
I kind of was introducing that initially in the last two slides, but we ran out of time. But basically, if you want to do what you're talking about, you definitely need to get into like the more looping macros function. I have an example macro that I think I popped in the chat earlier, but I can pop in the chat again. That can give you an idea of what that might look like. But yeah, definitely generalizing the names is important. And you can like kind of assign variables. So once you have like the macro go through once, you can go through again and like, okay, image equals get title at the top, and then you just have like image name in place of wherever you would have that variable lower down in your macro, if that makes sense.
Thank you, that really helps.
Okay. There was another question. Maybe that answered it too.
It was me. I was just going to ask about the data bins at Fridays. Obviously, This Friday is a long weekend, but I was wondering, is it open usually to anyone within like the UBC community? And do you have to book in advance? Do you have to register in advance? How does it work?
No, it's drop-in. Yeah, so you can just come whenever you have a chance on that time slot. There's no need to pre-register or anything. I just thought about people emailing me so I can share the Zoom link directly with you. So I'll put my email in the chat and then you can reach out. Hannah, go ahead.
I just have actually a question for you, Jeff. So I know that last year you ended up posting this recording to YouTube. Are you planning on doing that again?
Yeah, I think that's an easy place for people to get to it.
I think that answers some of the questions in the chat.
Okay. Yeah, so we have a YouTube channel for the brain circuits cluster. So that's probably where the video will land after we get the recording. And then we can share the link with the participant email list that we have when we shared the materials in the Zoom link originally for this. So I'll just put my email in the chat one more time in case people are interested in joining us for data binge sessions.
You guys should come. It's really fun. Everyone's really friendly. Highly recommend it. 10 out of 10.
Yeah, troubleshooting analysis is kind of one of the favorite topics. So there'll be a lot of enthusiastic people on the Zoom call trying to help you figure out how to get your macro going. The YouTube channel, I think it's just called UBC Brain Circuits. Is that right, Amy?
Yeah, that's right. I'll put a link to that in the chat as well.
Yeah, so if you go there now, you can see some of the past recordings from workshops and the version of this workshop that we ran in 2021.
All right, thank you. Thank you for your time today.
No problem. Thanks for coming. Oh, are you referring to the workshop that Amy mentioned, the one that we did with iCord? There was an open science framework link for that, right, Amy?
Yes, I don't actually have access to that. I think I need like admin access or something.
Do you have the link in the slides?
Yeah, I'll go grab that and then put that into the chat.
Yeah, so in that past workshop, we covered some modifications of the macro that was recorded to include getting the list of files and a for loop to loop over that list of files as a way of automating using the macro. And we also covered converting it into Python. There's the possibility to write Python-like code directly in ImageJ. And we touched on how to import ImageJ functionality into a Jupyter notebook. So if you have some macro that you make in ImageJ and then suddenly you need to apply this to just a lot of data, you might want to run it on a much bigger workstation or even on a compute cluster at UBC or with Compute Canada Digital Alliance, then that would be the way to do it. Your ImageJ macros they're never going to be wasted because that code can be used in all kinds of different circumstances. So that project that Amy is sharing the link for has an example where we made the macro in ImageJ as you guys did today, and then ran it in a Jupyter notebook